Okay, good afternoon, students. Last class we discussed about the resuscitation in newborn. What is resuscitation? What is fetal-neonatal transitions? What are the events? What are the complications? What are the things that interfere in transition, fetal-neonatal transition, and how you will resuscitate the babies. Today we will discuss what is respiratory distress in newborn. So today we'll discuss respiratory distress in newborn. So you will get one questions again short case or long questions about respiratory distress in newborn, like in preterm babies has hyaline membrane disease, respiratory distress syndrome, and in torn babies you will get transient tachypnea of newborn or meconium aspiration syndrome. These three cases you will get as respiratory distress in newborn as a long case. Long question or a short case in Viva. Okay. So today we'll discuss respiratory distress in newborn. First you listen my this topic, then you read. Okay. So what is a newborn? Who is a newborn? Newborn is a newly born child with signs of life. Newly born child with sign of life. That is a newborn. What is a newborn period? Newborn period is first 24 hours. What is a neonatal period? Neonatal period is from 8 birth to 28 days. That is neonatal period. But newborn period is first 24 hours. What is perinatal period? Perinatal period means first 28 weeks. From 28 weeks of gestation in utero to the first 7 days postnatal life. That is perinatal period. So newborn period, neonatal, perinatal, and early neonatal means first 7 days. Late neonatal means 7 to 20 days. So perinatal is 28 week gestation to the first 7 days postnatal life. That is perinatal period. Newborn period means first 24 hours. Early neonatal means 0 to first 7 days. Late neonatal means 7 days to 28 days. That is the period. Next, again, according to your, suppose irrespective of the birth weight, we can classify newborn as early preterm, term, and post-term. Again, preterm we can classify as very preterm, early preterm, late preterm. So now the definitions. Definition of term baby is 37 completed weeks to 40 weeks is a term baby. We'll ask these questions in your Viva, in your exam. What is the term baby? What is the definition of term baby? What is the preterm baby? What is the definition of preterm, post-term, post-dated babies? Okay. So term baby is a 37 completed weeks to 40 weeks is a term baby. Before 37, prior to 37 weeks is a preterm baby. And 40 to 42 weeks is a post-dated baby, not post-term. It's a post-dated baby. After 42 weeks is a post-term baby. Now again, preterm is classified again. Very preterm is 28 to 32 weeks. Early preterm is 32 to 34 weeks. Late preterm is 34 to 36 weeks. So this is the classification irrespective of the birth weight. So according to the gestation, this is the classification. So according to birth weight, irrespective of the gestation. So that is again, normal birth weight is 2.5 to 3 kilo is a normal birth weight baby. So low birth weight is less than 2.5 kilo. Very low birth weight less than 1.5 kilo. And extreme low birth weight is less than 1 kilo. A large baby is more than 4 kg. Irrespective of the gestation, according to the birth weight, is the classification. One more is gestational age against your birth weight. That is small for gestational age, appropriate for gestational age, and large for gestational age. Why this classification? Because according to the gestation, according to birth weight, the presentation is different, and again they will present in different diseases are in different gestation or in different type of baby. So accordingly they will present, and treatment also different. That's why these babies are classified like this. So first in respiratory distress in newborn, first we have to know what is a newborn baby. Then now what is respiratory distress? What is respiratory? Respiratory distress means difficulty in breathing or dyspnea. In medical term, we will say dyspnea. In lay term, layman term, we will have difficulty in breathing. So difficulty in breathing means either to initiate a breathing or to maintain a breathing. So to initiate breathing, if no, that is a term we are using apnea. Apnea means stoppage of breathing. There is no breathing. That's called apnea. So apnea you will get frequently, you will get in preterm babies. So different types of, that is 3 types of apnea you will get in preterm baby. That is your central apnea, obstructive apnea, and mixed apnea. So apnea or stoppage of breathing is due to either immaturity. You are not getting a drives, a respiratory drive to initiate breathing. So that means there is immaturity of the brain of the baby. So when there is immaturity means that baby is premature baby. So apnea you will get more in preterm baby. Secondary apnea, because suppose there is mature baby, means calm baby, but you are that baby is getting apnea means that due to some disease process. So different terms we are using for difficult disease. Apnea. Apnea is, so if it's a premature apnea or apnea of prematurity, you will get in preterm babies where your respiratory centers or brain is not mature. And apnea in term maybe is there to due to any infectious or pathology process. Other terms you are using tachypnea. Tachypnea means it's a rapid and shallow breathing. Whereas hyperpnea. Hyperpnea means always it is depth with or without rapid. Tachypnea means always rapid breathing and it is associated with shallow breathing. Also, and hyperpnea is always depth and it is may or may not associated with your rapid breathing. So hyperpnea may be a physiological condition like your exercise. So anxiety you will get hyperpnea. But tachypnea always a pathological conditions. And hyperventilation. Hyperventilation means there is frequency and or depth, both. That causes your decrease in carbon dioxide in alveolar space. That is hyperventilation. So these are the terms we are using. And according to these terms or this presentation, we can suspect maybe this process. Then why distress? Why the baby develop distress? Listen, our what is our tidal volume? In tidal volume is in single breath, what about the volume of air? Inhale and exhale, that is the tidal volume. So normal tidal volume in adult is 500 ml. Whereas in children, it is 6 to 8. And this infant, a newborn baby, it is 4 to 6 ml per kg. So suppose, suppose I am giving an example of adult. So in adult, tidal volume is 500 ml per kg. Sorry, 500 ml. And the rate is 18 to 20 breath per minute. Take it as 20 breath per minute. Okay. So anyway, body has to maintain minute ventilation so that the oxygenation at the tissue level will be proper and adequate. So 500 ml into 20 breath per minute equal to 1 liter or 1000 ml. So 1000 ml or 1 liter of air required so that the oxygenation will be better at the tissue level. So whenever there is any decrease in tidal volume due to any pathology, lung pathology or decreased air entry due to congenital or anatomical or surgical cause, that decreased air entry to the lungs or due to pathological process, lung parenchymal pathology, that is decreased aeration at the alveolar process, or even if aerations, there is that oxygen is not reached to the blood level due to suppose shock, decreased blood volume, hypovolemia, or due to decrease due to anemia. That also, even if aeration occurs, the oxygen is not reached to the tissue level. So in that cases, the tidal volume decreases. When there is tidal volume decreases. Anyway, their body has to maintain minute volume. So 1 liter. So when there is from the 500 ml to tidal volume decreases 300 ml, anyway body has to maintain 1 liter. So that time your respiratory will be increased to 30. Okay. So then it will be 1000 ml. So when 500 decreases, then 20 will increase to 30. So anyway, suppose 400 into 300, 1 liter. So that's why when there is any decrease in air entry or any distress due to pathological process or anatomical or surgical cause, there is increased rate to maintain your minute ventilation so that tissue oxygenation will be proper or maintained. So that's why they will develop distress. That's the physiology. Next is what are the causes of distress? Why there is respiratory distress in newborns? What are the causes? Maybe anatomical cause, maybe a surgical anatomical cause means suppose congenital anomalies, or maybe a surgical cause, or maybe a pathological. Anatomical cause, suppose there is what are the anatomical cause? That's choanal atresia, there is blockage of nose, choanal atresia, or there is stridor, congenital, or suppose there is laryngeal wave is there that block aeration, or there is tracheoesophageal fistula. Tracheoesophageal means there is a connection between trachea and esophagus. Whatever the baby will swallow, it will go to the trachea, not to the esophagus. So aspiration. So tracheoesophageal fistula. Again, if you go to your long parenchyma, then pneumonia, then pleural effusions or pneumothorax. Okay, these are. If it will go to reach to the vessels level or circular system, suppose there is congenital circulatory failure, or maybe there is shock, or maybe there is anemia. In these conditions, maybe will get respiratory distress. Okay. So next is what are the signs of respiratory distress? So always in children's or newborn babies, always present as symptoms as present as first refusal to feed. Baby refuse to feed. Baby won't take feeding. That is the first presentation if any distress in newborn. And then baby is lethargic, drowsy, hypotonic, like this present. There's the symptoms, but then most important is what are the signs of respiratory distress. There is 5 signs of respiratory. That is tachypnea, nasal flaring, grunting, intercostal retraction, and sinuses. Why these signs are developed? These signs are developed to adapt the adaptation to the distress. In the distress, body try to adapt to the situation. So what is tachypnea? I told you to maintain your minute volume. So rate will increase. What is the normal rate in newborn baby? That is 40 to 60 breaths per minute. 40 to 60 breaths per minute. Above 60 is your tachypnea in newborn baby. Why nasal flaring? When there is decrease in air entry or due to lung pathology or due to some airway blockage, baby try to take more oxygen. But to more oxygen, to increase or more air entry, the resistance of the airway should be decreased. Okay, so when how resistance decrease? Resistance is inversely proportional to the your diameter of the airway. So to reduce resistance, that diameter radius of the airway should be increased. That's why there is nasal. This nose and nasal flaring occurs. See that one picture I will show. See here there is nasal flaring. There is no both nares are dilated. That is nasal flaring. So that is a physiological condition, physiological adaptation to the distress. When there is blockage of airway, baby tries to take more air to maintain their minute ventilation. So there is nasal dilatation of nares. That is called nasal flaring. Then next is grunting. Grunting is a expiratory abnormal sounds. That is also physiological adaptations. Why? So anyway, when there is any pathology, body tries to to maintain the functional residual capacity. What is the functional residual capacity? Functional residual capacity is the amount of air in the alveoli after full expression or after forceful expression. After forceful expression, what are the amount of air in the alveoli? That is functional residual capacity. Why it is necessary? That functional residual capacity or volume, that volume of air maintain the alveoli open. So that further inhalation of air, it is easily or fully open. So this grunting is required to maintain functional residual capacity. How it will maintain? So definition of grunting, it is a expiratory abnormal sounds that is due to forceful exhalation of air against a partially closed epiglottis. Against a partially closed epiglottis, the forceful exhalation of air. So the force will not go outside. It will go back and open the alveoli. So alveoli always remain little bit open. So that further, that when inhalation of air, it will easily open. Okay, that is the main thing. That is grunting. Then next is intercostal. What is intercostal? Why there is retraction? After few hours, after 2 to 4 hours of struggling for air or air hunger, what happened? All muscles of our intercostal muscles are fatigued. So when they are fatigued, instead of they are expanding, they are sinking down. Okay, that is called as intercostal retraction. So that you will get retraction after 4 to 6 hours of fighting for or hungry for that air. You will get intercostal retraction after 4 to 6 hours of respiratory distress. Sinuses. What is sinuses? Sinuses is a fluid discoloration of your lip, tongue, your lobule. That is central sinuses. And central sinuses is due to decreased saturation or oxygen saturation in the arterial blood. That causes sinuses. So these are the 5 signs of respiratory distress you will get in not only in newborn baby, also in children. So you have to remember what are the signs of respiratory distress. For symptoms, always baby will present first refuse to feed, drowsy, lethargic, decreased muscle tone. These are the present signs or symptoms of respiratory distress. Whereas signs of distress are these 5. Then these are the cyanosis, this retraction, this is the retractions, this is the nasal flaring, this is the cyanosis. Now, how to know severity of distress? To know the severity of distress, there is a Down score for torn baby and children. But for a preterm baby, there is a Silverman-Anderson score. So, in Down score, there is 5 objective signs you have to check. These are respiratory rate, retraction, cyanosis, air entry, and run. These 5 objective signs you have to say, and for each objective signs we have to give the score 0, 1, 2. So total score is 10. So out of 10, what is the score? Accordingly, your decision what to do or what to act, how to act. So if it is 4, less than 4, out of 10, if less than 4, there is no respiratory distress. If it is a 4 to 7, some respiratory test, you have to give oxygenation. If it is more than 7, that is impending failure. You have to give push pressure ventilations. Okay. So according to, so this is a scoring system. By this way, you have to know the severity of the distress, and accordingly you have to act. So damage score for torn babies and for children. The Silverman-Anderson here also mainly these 3 objective signs you have to see, and that is retractions, nasal flaring, and rotting. This retraction again 3 times 3. There are upper chest retraction, lower chest retraction, and deeper retraction. Otherwise, you will take it is 5 objective signs, and you are same. You have to give score 0, score 1, and 2. So total score you have here also 10 scoring. So when score is 0 to 3, it is mild respiratory distress. When it is 4 to 6, is moderate, and more than 6 is impending respiratory failure. So this is the scoring system for torn baby, preterm baby. Accordingly, you have to act. So before, so last class I told you about the how that first breath starts and what are the requirement for first breath. So what are the requirement for first breath? The airway should be patent, and lungs should be developed and mature, and third thing, respiratory centers of the brain should be mature. So these 3 things required for to attend a first breath in newborn babies. These are the anatomical stages of lung development. What are the stages? There is 5 stages of lung development. You have to remember this one: embryonic stage, pseudoglandular stage, canalicular, terminal sac, and alveolar. So what are the stages and what is the period? Embryonic stage is 0 to 6 weeks. Pseudoglandular is 7 to 16 weeks. Canalicular is 17 to 24 weeks. Terminal sac is 25 to 36. And alveolar stage still going on after delivery also. So these are the 5 stages, and any event or any conditions that interfere in that development of this stage will present like a different disease. So this is a preterm baby's lungs, here a torn baby lung. So now after delivery, they will adapt to the respiratory systems, by 3 factors: one mechanical factor, chemical, and sensory. These 3 factors makes the baby to initiate a breathing and maintain the breathing. Any event during transition or any event in antenatal period or during natal period interfere in these factors, during transition, the baby will present later as respiratory distress. So what are the mechanical factors? So I told last class that what are the mechanical requirement is airway should be patent, lungs should be developed, respiratory should be mature. What is the so to develop a first breath, that should be a pressure, that should be transpulmonary pressure. So you know always air will move from high pressure to low pressure. So that's where there should be a transpulmonary pressure, means pulmonary pressure or transalveolar pressure. So there is a pressure difference between the alveoli and your large airway, trachea. So when there is a difference of airway pressure, the air will enter the alveoli. So for this transpulmonary pressure in our adult or in older children, the diaphragm has to contract to develop a negative interthoracic pressure. Okay, this transpulmonary pressure should be at least more than 40, that is 60 millimeters. And this transpulmonary pressure in newborn will develop by that specific factor. That specific is chest ripple during delivery process, squeezing of the thorax of the newborn. After baby comes out, then the squeezing process reduce baby chest expand. That is called chest trickle. Due to chest trickle, that negative pressure will develop, and that is called transpulmonary pressure. And due to transpulmonary pressure, air enters. So that is the volume pressure required for first breath. But same time, the airway and the alveoli is full of long fluid. So this long fluid should be clear. Again, the long fluids required for normal growth and development of lungs. So when there is during delivery process, due to squeeze of thorax, some lungs fluid will transfer from the alveolar space to the interstitial space during squeeze process. And also during labor some catecholamines release as a your corticoids, thyroid hormones, mainly epinephrine. This causes change in epithelium. See here in antenatal period in utero, this epithelium is a secretory epithelium. It secretes the fluid to the alveolar space. But when during labor, due to the catecholamine release, this secretory activity of the epithelium is changed to the your absorptive. So you would absorb water from the alveolar space to the interstitial space. Again, due to this catecholamine also, that lymphatic absorption also increase. Okay, so these three things, these three changes causes clearance of lung fluid. Also, during clearance of lung fluid, only 75% of fluid clear. Only 25% fluid stay at the alveoli. That will maintain the functional residual capacity, and that open the alveoli. Next is surfactant. Surfactant is a lipoprotein substance that reduce the surface tension or surface active force between the fluid and air. By this way, it reduces the lower the opening pressure and maintain the functional residual capacity. Air entry. Once air enter, it somehow it will displace the fluid. What are the fluids in the alveoli? Somehow it will displace the fluid. Also, when due to oxygenation, there is increase. There is pulmonary vasodilation. Due to pulmonary vasodilation, there is a decrease in hydrostatic pressure, and due to decreased hydrostatic pressure, the pulmonary blood flow increases. Also, it provides a large surface area of the fluid uptake. So that is the work of air entry. Once air enter. So by this way, this is the mechanical vector that helps in first breath in a newborn. Next, but air is ready to enter. Everything is clear. So from at the pulmonary levels, may be adapted to this situation. But same time, some neurochemical maturation should be required. So what are they? So due to the babies in utero is in hypoxic stage. So when you cut the umbilical vessels, again the baby went to more hypoxic. So that causes decrease in oxygen and increase in carbon dioxide. Increased carbon dioxide is a stimulator for respiratory centers. So it stimulates the respiratory center in brain. Again, same time, the acidosis, hypoxemia, hypercapnia, that's also stimulate the respiratory center, that medulla in the brain stem. And sometimes also this hypoxia in decreased oxygen and increased carbon dioxide also stimulate the peripheral chemoreceptors and central chemoreceptors. So all this for this that gets a respiratory drive for to initiate breathing. So these are neurochemical changes. Again, to maintain first breath starts, but to maintain that breathing, other things after delivery, the thermal, the temperature maybe comes to a cold temperature. So this temperature also a stimulus for breathing. Same time, handling the baby, to clean when you will clean the baby, that also stimulus for a baby. Same time, your baby comes to from a dark environment to the light environment. That's so light also is a stimulus. Again, our extrauterine sounds also a stimulus for breathing. So these all these things, sensory or thermal events that maintain the breathing. So all about that is adaptation to the extrauterine life. So to judge what is the cause of respiration, some perinatal history, you have to ask some when there is a restless baby, you will get a restless baby. You have to ask some history, that perinatal history that will suggest some diseases in diseases that the cause of respiratory distress in this baby. Accordingly, you have to act. So if there is suppose history of polyhydramnios in mother, then you always think maybe it's a congenital diaphragmal hernia or it's a tracheoesophageal fistula. So from the perinatal history, you have to diagnose or you have to think that maybe the cause. If there is a oligohydramnios, always think a pulmonary hypoplasia. If there is history of prolonged rupture of membrane, then there is definitely a infection transfer from the mother to the baby. So chance of congenital pneumonia. When there is suppose preterm delivery, you will think maybe it is a respiratory distress syndrome or a hyaline membrane disease. When there is suppose you will get meconium stained amniotic fluid, then there is maybe a aspiration of meconium. That causes meconium aspiration syndrome, which is the cause of respiratory distress in newborn. So from the perinatal history, you will get some hints about the disease, and you have to prepare for this disease. So according to again, that is from the perinatal, you will get some hints or you will get some hints to know the cause or disease process. Also, according to the presentation, hour of presentation, once you will receive one baby respiratory distress, the presentation of respiratory distress according to hour or a presentation, you also will get some hints about the diagnosis. Suppose first is a torn baby or preterm baby. If it is a preterm baby and you will present respiratory distress first 6 hours, what are the causes? If a preterm baby and the first 6 hours, then always it is maybe a hyaline membrane disease. First, your diagnosis is a hyaline membrane disease. Second, pneumonia, or third maybe some anatomical cause. If it is baby will present after 6 hours, always first it is a pneumonia, congenital pneumonia. Then maybe a heart disease or some others. If it is a torn baby, then and presentation was first 6 hours, always it is a transient tachypnea newborn or maybe a meconium aspiration syndrome. These are the causes, common causes in first 6 hours in a torn baby. If presentation is after 6 hours, then always it is a pneumonia. So remember, it is a torn baby or preterm baby. If respiratory distress presents fast after 6 hours, then always it is a congenital pneumonia. So according to presentation, the duration of life, the diagnosis. So here we have to discuss the common things that that you should know, and that will come in your your exam. That guanine lactation, tracheoesophageal fistula, transient tachypnea newborn, hyaline membrane disease, meconium aspiration syndrome, and congenital pneumonia. These are the common diseases that are have been babies. They will present respiratory distress, and also these common things you should know. So guanine lactation. What is the guanine lactation? That is the back of the nasal passage. The back of the nasal is blocked, usually either due to bony problem or something soft tissue problem. There is blockage, nasal blockage. And when there is bilateral guanine lactation, the baby will severely, there is a serious life-threatening condition. Why this the baby will suffer from this? Till 6 months, baby is a obligate nasal breather. Obligate nasal breather means baby knows only nasal breathing. They don't know how to breathe mouth breathing. So if when there is a unilateral, there is no problem. You know, another nurse, he or she can take. But when there is bilateral guanine lactation, then that is difficulty in breathing. This is a serious life-threatening conditions. Tracheoesophageal. Tracheoesophageal means there is a connection between the trachea and the esophagus. So whenever baby will swallow any secretions after delivery, or baby will swallow any secretion, that will go to trachea instead of go to your esophagus. So with fast feeding, fast breastfeeding, they will develop respiratory distress. So trachea fistula is 5 types. With the first type 1 is most common, and type 4, that's age type, is very less, and worst type of. So you have to know tracheostomy. How to diagnose the tracheostomy? If baby will present after first feed, baby will present severe respiratory distress, then you think maybe it is a tracheostomy. To diagnose tracheostomy, you have to push one feeding tube through mouth and take a X-ray. Take a chest X-ray. If there is a tracheostomy, what happened in tracheostomy? The upper part of esophagus is blind pouch. The lower part of esophagus is connected to your trachea connection. So when you push one feeding tube through the mouth, it will coil up in upper pouch. So you will get this type of X-ray. So this X-ray if you will get, then it is suggestive of tracheostomy. What are the presentation? Baby, that is drooling of saliva. First respiratory distress, drooling of saliva, and for the secretion, Brody secretion. These three things you will get. This is a common findings in brachial fistula, and is a surgical condition. You have to go for surgery. Transient tachypnea beyond. Transient means for 4 to 6 hours because that is self. Transient means it will recover itself. No need to treat anything. Transient means for small hour, 12 to 24-hour period. Transient tachypnea. Tachypnea means increased breathing in newborn. What is the cause? What happened in utero, in antenatal period, or in fetal period? That secretory activity, the long epithelium, the alveolar, this long epithelium is secretory. That is chloride channel. They will secrete fluid or long fluid to the alveolar space. During your deliberate process or during labor or towards the end of labor or towards the end of term, the secretion of the epithelium decreases and absorption of this fluid increases. This period going on this towards the end of the delivery or end of the term gestations. So during delivery process, there is secretions of catecholamines that causes further change in epithelium, the chloride to the sodium absorptive channel, so that your long fluid will decrease. But what happened in this baby? In this baby, this is the transient TTN is a disease of the term baby or post-term baby. What happened? This term when and those baby will go for cesarean, like cesarean section. In cesarean section, this normal process during delivery process that their thorax squeezes. That squeezing process does not happen in cesarean section, so that the fluids inside the airway goes to your interstitial space. Second thing, this catecholamine releases, those are required for this clearance of lung fluids, not secreted in cesarean sections. That's why the long fluid will stay in the alveolar process. It will not go to the interstitial section, and that baby will develop respiratory distress. But after delivery, after 12 to 24 hours, slowly, again that catecholamine releases and that secretory epithelium will change to your absorptive. Then after 12 hours, the all fluid will be cleared. Then baby will be recovered. So that is transient tachypnea newborn is a transient period, 4 to 12 hours or 12 to 14, 24 hours in a term baby are due to and those baby going for cesarean sections. Okay. It is a self-limiting disease. So you will get, if you take X-ray, what you will see, then you will get hyperinflation, and there is flat diaphragm, floppy densities you will get, and you will get perihilar, around the perihilar streakings. Okay, this type of X-ray you will get in TTN. It's a self-limiting disease. You have to give some support. Next is respiratory distress syndrome. Respiratory distress syndrome you will get in preterm babies. Why you will get a baby preterm babies will suffer from this respiratory? Respiratory distress syndrome due to surfactant deficiency, both in deficiency or insufficiency, both in your qualitative and quantitative. So, what is surfactant? Surfactant is a surface active metal. What happened in utero or before delivery or just after delivery? There is a interface between the air and fluid in the alveolar space. Okay, there is a interface. There is a force in between the liquid and the air. So these surfactants are the surface active metal in between that interfaces that reduce this force, that is surface tension force. Surfactants, what is that? Surfactants are surface active metal between the secreted by the type 2 alveolar cells that reduce the surface tension or surface active force between the air and liquid interface, so that alveoli remains open. Okay, so that is a surfactant. What are the composition of surfactant? Surfactant mainly a lipoprotein material, means mainly it's a primarily is a phospholipid material, phosphatidylcholine and phosphatidylglycerol, mainly surfactant with a protein, that is surface active protein A, B, C, D. Okay, what is the role of these proteins? This role of protein is they maintain the stability of the surfactant and rapidly distribution of the surfactant over the alveoli. That is the work of that protein. So surfactant is a mainly it is a phospholipid and protein, and this surfactants are secreted by the type 2 alveolar cells. So that is the compositions. Next is synthesis and secretion. Synthesis by type 2 alveolar cells. Surfactant synthesis starts from 20th week of gestation, and it starts formation and synthesis till 32 weeks of gestation. After this, that time, since surfactants are immature, by 35 weeks it will be mature. So those baby who will deliver before 32 weeks, that time the surfactant are immature or the type 2 alveolars are immature. So equal or adequate amount of surfactant synthesis and secretion not happen. So that baby, that's what happened, and the baby suffer for this disease, the respiratory distress. The secretion also, that's type 2 alveolar cells secrete this surfactant to the interface of liquid and air interface. But that secretion also controlled by some hormones, mainly epinephrine. Other category like glucocorticoids, thyroid hormones, they control the secretion of the surfactant. This is about synthesis and secretion of surfactant. What are the physical forms? That's three forms of surfactants. One is lamellar form, another is vesicular form, one more is tubular form. So tubular form is most active form, and its action is more stable than other two forms. And the vesicular and lamellar forms are, that is catabolic form of surfactants. And out of these two, again, this vesicular form is again uptake by the type 2 alveolar cells, and further for synthesis of surfactant starts. So there is three form: lamellar form, tubular form, and vesicular. Out of these three, tubular form is most active. Next is what are the commercial form? Commercial forms means suppose in babies where there is a deficiency of surfactant and the baby will suffer from surfactant disease, that is a respiratory distress. In that case, we have to give exogenous surfactant, that is I will say commercial form. What are the either synthetic form or normal animal form, natural form, that is from animal we will get from here. And so two types of on the synthetic form, one is natural, that's animal, from the animal. Two forms available outside in market, we will give as exogenous. So these are all about commercial forms. So you have to know this. Next is role of surfactant. What is the role of surfactant? What happens? This role of surfactant causes reduce the surface tension. The surface tension at the air liquid interface. Thereby, it reduces the lower the opening pressure, so that easily the alveoli are open. So that by this way it maintains the functional residual capacity in the alveoli. Also, same time surfactant helps in equal distribution of the air throughout the lung. So, okay, surfactant role of action is it reduces the surface tension or surface active force. Thereby, it maintains functional stability or maintain the alveoli open, and that means it prevents atelectasis or collapse of the alveoli. That is the role of surfactant. See, this is the role of in the normal expression with surfactant, all alveoli are open alveoli, but here abnormal expression without surfactant, there is collapse of the alveoli. Okay, so this is the role of surfactant. So you will get questions about surfactant, 2 mark questions. Then you have to write all these things. Now, what are the other factors that inhibit the action of this surfactant? This is any infections, mainly group B beta hemolytic streptococcal infections, and any blood, meconium, or any oxygen. These causes inactivity of the surfactant. Even if the surfactant present, become inactive, or they causes reduced synthesis of surfactant. So what are the risk factors where you will get this surfactant deficiency? Most common is prematurity, because by 32 weeks our surfactant production starts, it will come to the epithelium. But mature surfactant will release by 35 weeks. So those baby developed before 32 weeks, these babies will suffer from this hyaline membrane disease or respiratory distress syndrome. Maternal diabetes, same thing like that. In maternal diabetes or diabetic mother, same thing. It inactivates the surfactant. And also cesarean delivery. Cesarean delivery, this catecholamine, epinephrine, non-releases. So that also reduce synthesis and also decrease action of or activity of surfactant. Like specific level, fetal assertion. These are the risk factors where there is activity of surfactant decreases. So what happens? What is the pathophysiology? When there is surfactant deficiency, that is when there is surfactant, there is reduced the surfactant will be more. So that then that time what happens? All alveoli will be collapsed. When the alveoli collapse, there is decrease your oxidation. So decrease oxygen, increase carbon dioxide. Same time due to decrease oxidation, there is anaerobic and anaerobic metabolism. So due to anaerobic metabolism, there is acidosis. So hypoxia. Your hyperkalemia means increased carbon dioxide in arterial blood. So hypoxemia means decreased oxygenation. Hyperkalemia means increased carbon dioxide with acidosis. These three causes pulmonary vasoconstriction. Pulmonary vasoconstriction. So there is pulmonary vasoconstriction. There is increased pulmonary vascular resistance. So in that cases, we can right to left hands open. Same times due to that causes direct injury to epithelial and endothelial area. These changes causes direct injury. When there is injury, there is cytokine releases or pro-inflammatory cytokine releases. Sometimes these fibrinous proteins are released to the alveolar space, and that causes formed a membrane. That's called hyaline membrane disease. Okay. So this is the pathophysiology of hyaline membrane disease. How people present said respiratory distress, like all are signs of respiratory distress and decreased feeding. So like this, all patients are same as respiratory distress, they will be present. Now to diagnosis of hyaline membrane, how to diagnose? That is some long profile. You have to remember this long profile to detect prenatal detection of this long profile required to detect prenatally from the amniotic fluid will collect by amniocentesis. Amniotic fluid you will collect by amniocentesis. In this amniotic fluid, you have to find out this long profile. What are the long profiles? That is LS ratio, lecithin sphingomyelin ratio. This lecithin sphingomyelin ratio should be more than 2. Then that means there is that long is mature or risk is very low. But exception is there. Exception means suppose diabetic mother, meconium stand baby, meconium stand amniotic fluid. In that cases, this causes inactivity of the surfactant or decreased synthesis. So you will get less than 2 in these cases. One more is predates equilibrium. In that case, you will get surfactant albumin ratio. So surfactant albumin ratio should be more than 55. You have to remember this long profile. We'll ask questions. Long profile. What is lecithin sphingomyelin ratio? What are other long profile for prenatal detection? So surfactant albumin ratio should be more than 55 for maturity. But if it's more than 44 or 45 means there is a low risk of RDS. Okay. Then lamellar. What is a lamellar body? Lamellar body is a package of phospholipids that is secreted by the type 2 alveolar cells. Okay. These are towards the term gestation, this lamellar body will come to the amniotic fluid. Okay. So with count of lamellar body, you will know the maturity of the lungs. So lamellar body is a package of phospholipid secreted by type 2 alveolar cells, which comes to the amniotic fluid towards the and increase in the amount, increase count towards the term gestation. So by count, lamellar body will know the long measurement. Again, presence of phosphatidyl ratios. These are 4-5 long profile you should know, by which we will then detect prenatally the RDS or risk of RDS or long maturity will know. But what we will get in RDS? So RDS again, mild, moderate, severe type. In mild, moderate cases, you will get first feature is mild, moderate. What happens? Here, the proteinaceous or fibrous exudates are in alveoli. So whatever there is no aeration in alveolar level, only air is coming to till respiratory bronchioles. So you will get air in the bronchioles and bronchioles. So you will get AR bronchogram. This black are AR bronchogram. These blacks are AR bronchogram. So when you will get AR bronchogram is The alveoli is not entered either it is a RDS, if it is a preterm baby, it's a term baby, it's a pneumonia because this alveoli are full with fluids. Okay, so you will get floppy exudates. All white hairs are floppy exudates with air bronchogram. So it is a mild moderate type of RDS if it is a preterm baby. Okay, and presentation, hour of presentation. Sometimes when there is severe means there is severe deficiency of surfactant. Total there is no aeration. All alveoles are too large. You will get that is called white out, white WHIT, white out lung. That is severe disease of severe type of RDS. Now how to treat? Always it is first supportive. Supportive means you have to maintain the temperature of the baby because whether the temperature is high or low, then metabolic demand will be more. Second, hydration. You have to give fluid. You have to give fluid because when there is a respiratory distress, that is insensitive loss will go. Insensitive loss means the loss through lungs and skin will be more. So insensitive loss more in respiratory distress. So you have to give more fluid. But same time, it is a preterm baby. You have to be careful about the pattern of the. Due to more fluid, they will develop pulmonary edema, and that is opening up the doctor's artery. So you have to give hydration, but careful about this to complication. Liquid nutrition, you have to calculate the calorie requirement and fluid requirement and the electrolyte requirement. Accordingly, you have to give. Next, antibiotic. Most of the cases, this there is a confusion or there is a different diagnosis between the pneumonia. Pneumonia also present same like RDS. So you may think as maybe the infection may be the cause, or sometimes when you are intervening or you are doing some intervention, that's also chance of infection. So you have to start antibiotic. Next, oxygen. If baby is mild moderate cases, you have to give oxygen, supply oxygen. Suppose after this also baby is not recovered or baby not respiration not the case, you have to start continuous positive airway pressure. That is continuous positive CPAP or continuous positive airway pressure. So again, one more thing, you can prevent this RDS. You can prevent this RDS, respiratory distress syndrome or highly memories in preterm baby by giving antenatal steroids. You have to give antenatal steroids if you are expecting your baby delivered by preterm delivery. You are expecting within 1 week of delivery. Then you have to give steroid. That is before 34 weeks. What is the action? If you give antenatal, how it will prevent that RDS? How it will mature the lungs? What happened? Antenatal steroids, that is remodeling of the your alveolar architecture. Remodeling of the alveolar architecture. Same time, it increases synthesis of surfactant. So these 2-3 things it causes. So by this way, it reduces mortality, also reduce. So at least if you are expecting certain any preterm delivery, at least within 4 hours you have to give single dose. That will reduce more around 50-60% of RDS. Again, it also reduce need for ventilation in ICU. Again, not only it reduce RDS, 3 more diseases also it reduce. That is intraventricular hemorrhage, necrotizing enterocolitis, and bronchopulmonary dyssyllabis. So always you will get a MCQ also. What are the diseases you can treat or reduce by antenatal steroids? So then which steroids you are giving? Beta-methagen or dexamethasone. These are the doses you have to give. Always beta-methagen is preferred because dexamethasone is a neurotoxic. So always beta-methagen is the choice. What are the contraindications? In which case you should not give the antenatal steroids? There's 2 things. One is chorioablative. If there is any chance infection mother, you should not give steroid. One more thing, again, mother is eclampsia. In these 2 conditions, you should not give antenatal steroid. Then what is the complication? If you are giving steroid, what are the complication? In short complication, you will get hyperglycemia, hypertension, GI bleed. These are the common short complication. What is the long complication? That is long-term is cerebral palsy. So you will get again antenatal steroid is a 2-mark question in your exam. So you have to write minimum this thing. So you will antenally you can give steroid and prevent RDS. Otherwise, you have to give surfactant. Because of this surfactant deficiency, you have to give exogenous surfactant, and that is called 1 or 2 methods. One is early rescue method, one is prophylactic. Prophylactic means suppose you are expecting one baby will deliver within 1 day or within 1 week. Then you should be prophylactic, and that is less than 37 weeks. Sorry, 32 weeks. Then in that case, prophylactically, once you receive one baby, you have to give. If it is less than 32 weeks, means once you receive means prophylactically you have to give so that you can prevent. One more thing, suppose That is all on more is early rescue. Actually means after presentation. After presentation, suppose 32 weeks or 33 weeks, maybe developed distress. In that case, you will wait for 2 hours. After you evaluate and give exogenous surfactant. That's called early rescue. So two methods, either early rescue or prophylactic. So these are the surfactants, commercially available surfactants. There is one is non-protein synthetic surfactant, one synthetic and animal surfactant. Synthetic surfactant, animal surfactant. Usually we are using Survanta that is 4 ml per kg or Curosur 2.5 ml. That is the dose of surfactant we are giving. So what is the method? How will you give that? That's called insure method. Insure method means intubate, give surfactant, then extubate. First you have to, once you will receive baby, you have to, if it is a less than 1 kilo baby, you have to use that endotracheal tube is 2.5 ml. If it is a 1 kilo to 2 kilo, that is 3 ml. So you intubate the baby with endotracheal tube size 3 or 3.5 ml. Then through a feeding tube. Through a feeding tube, you have to enter this within this endotracheal tube. Center we have to feed this feeding tube. Within the through feeding tube, you have to push this surfactant. Again, whatever the total surfactant, you have to give four quadrants. This first quadrant you have to give, then you have to for some time or 10 to 30 seconds you have to give ventilation. Then so like this 4 quadrant you have to give this surfactant. So that is by method. What is the method? That is insure method. Insure means intubate, surfactant, extubate. Then after giving this surfactant, you have to remove that endotracheal tube and that baby is put in CPAP, that is continuous positive pressure ventilation. Whatever that is the complications you will get. So when you will give that surfactant will block the trachea, so you will get desaturations. Okay, or maybe apnea, or maybe a hemorrhage. These 2-3 things you will get, but that will recover, that will subside within 2-3 hours. These are the complications you will get in insure technique. So what is CPAP? CPAP is a continuous positive air pressure. So first breather, for breathing or for first inspirated breath, you need a negative intrathoracic pressure. What is the negative intrathoracic pressure? That is -3 to -5 millimeter mercury. That is the minimum. That is the normal intrathoracic pressure you will get for a first inspiratory breath. But here the baby is not breathing because all alveoli are collapsed. So you have to give continuous positive. From outside you give pressure. That is called positive airway pressure. Again you have to give positive airway pressure, and that should be minimum to open the alveoli. What is the normal minimum pressure required to open the alveoli? That is 3 to 5 mm. Okay, so this pressure will give through this instrument, and that should be continuous, not phased. So continuously it will give, so that is injury will be less and the alveoli will be open throughout the respiration. That is called continuous positive airway pressure. So you will give continuous positive airway pressure only in spontaneously breathing baby. Spontaneously breathing, but labor breathing. In that case, you have to give some spontaneous CPAP. So what is the action of CPAP? CPAP causes recruitment for alveoli, means those alveoli which are already collapsed, that will open. And second thing, it prevent, by this way it prevent atelectasis. That means prevent collapse. Again, it clean the airways. It means those are terminal bronchial, they collapse. So it gives a splinting mechanism. It gives a split, so that through continuous positive pressure, it will make the airways open. Also, also it will maintain functional residual capacity. Also, it reduces by continuous positive air pressure. The alveoli are always open, not collapsed. So, rarely required mechanical ventilations. Also, this continuous positive air pressure preserve the functional property of the surfactant. So that surfactant will act, because normally if surfactant deficiency occurs in utero due to some complications, the surfactant production starts after 72 hours in postnatal. So if we maintain this first 72 hours by giving continuous positive air pressure, after 72 hours, we will improve physiologically due to increased production and activity of the surfactant. So that is our aim, is to give continuous positive air pressure minimum 72 hours to maintain the respiration of the baby. So this is the machines we are using. continuous positive waves. That is called bubble CPAP because here there is bubbling. So this is a bubble CPAP. What are the complications? Complication is air leak. Air leak means due to if you give more pressure. Normally requires 3 to 5 ml. If you give some more pressure, there's more expansion of the lungs. Then there is maybe leaking. Air leaking, you will get pneumothorax, pneumomediastinum. So this, or due to use of this or use of this equipments, you will get maybe infected. So chance of pneumonia. Or due to if you give more pressure, that chances may be intracranial hemorrhage, and also there is opening of the ductus artery. These are the common complications you will get after CPAP. So all this is all about hyaline membrane disease or respiratory distress syndrome in children, in newborn babies. Next is what is the congenital pneumonia is a cause of both in preterm baby means cause of respiratory distress. So how do you know what are the risk factors? These are the risk factors. So antenatal this pneumonia is due to transmission of infection from the mother to the baby. That is in called congenital pneumonia. That's either or we will say it is a neonatal sepsis. Neonatal again early neonatal sepsis, late neonatal sepsis. So early neonatal sepsis is called congenital pneumonia. Baby always present as either bacteremia or a congenital pneumonia. What are the risk factors? The risk factors in mothers, suppose mother having unexplained preterm labor, prolonged rupture of membrane, premature rupture of membrane, or UTI in the last 15 days of delivery, or maternal fever, uterine tenderness. These are the risk factors present in mothers. Always think maybe a congenital pneumonia is the cause of distress in term babies or is the preterm babies. Here are the risk factors. So what are the etiology most commonly? If it is an early neonatal sepsis, means if baby will present first 24, first 72 hours in this respiratory distress, then it is always a group B streptococcus. If a baby will present after 72 hours, always it will be due to a E. coli and others. These two are most common. Others are rare. So and the route of transmission is always hematogenous or ascending or aspiration. This is the pathophysiology. So how do you diagnose? Always there is a difference differences between diagnosis between the pneumonia and your respiratory. Both will present same, and the X-ray picture will be same. Here also, due to pneumonia, all alveolar filled with your fluid. So there is no aeration. So you will get here also trophy, densities of trophy, patchy infiltration of both lungs with air monogram and hyperinflation. You will get. So it's same to your. Only by history or presentations you will differentiate this. Third one, this one last one is meconium aspiration. Meconium aspiration is also a most common and is a common cause of respiratory distress in term baby and post term baby. Okay, so what is meconium aspiration? So meconium aspiration is a respiratory distress in an infant born from meconium stained amniotic fluid whose symptoms cannot be observed. So one baby, suppose term baby or a post-term baby. Mostly term baby, post-term babies suffer from this meconium aspiration because they passed this meconium and aspirate. Okay, and they will present more as respiratory distress. What is a meconium? Meconium is sterile. Meconium is sterile, black green color material and bragging odorless material. That is present in intestine of the term baby. Towards the gestation, towards the termination, you will get meconium as a black green odorless metal in the intestine of the term baby. It contains all the epithelial cells, all debris, epithelial cells, fetal hair, mucus, bile, all these things you will get. That's the meconium. So meconium is just sterile, but when they will aspirate, it won't cause. It is just sterile. It won't cause. A secondary infection occurs. That is the causes pneumonia. So baby will present distress. So the meconium production, meconium is a sterile, and the composition. What is the cause of meconium? Why there is meconium stain amniotic? Baby meconium stain amniotic you will get in term baby and post baby. Why? When the baby is any distress due to any cause, maybe asphyxia, hypoxia, or no, when there is baby in distress, baby will pass meconium. Again, the meconium mixed with the amniotic fluid, again baby swallow and aspirated. That is meconium aspiration. But again, post-term baby, what in post-term baby that motility they record for what motility. So in post-term babies, motility will be high. So by physiologically, normally or naturally, they will pass stool, and that again they will aspirate. So term baby and post-term is most normally these two baby are separated from this meconium asphyxia. Okay. So cause is either hypoxia, asphyxia, or any distress in term babies, and post-term babies due to motility. The cause of meconium stem aneurysm. So what is pathophysiology? Well, pathophysiology. When baby pass meconium, that meconium block the airway. When baby when meconium block the large airway, that is it acts as a valve-like mechanism. Means one way valve means air only enter to this, but cannot come out. So there is air trapping. When meconium block the large airway, that is it acts as a valve-like mechanism. So air only enter to the alveoli, but not comes out. So that means air trapping. So when there is air trapping, that's air leaking. So you will get pneumothorax, pneumomediation in that case. When suppose that meconium blocks the small bronchioles, there is collapse of the alveoli. So you will get atelectasis. That is oxygenation and ventilation oxygenation mismatch occurs. Okay, and when suppose also this meconiums are sterile, so it won't develop, but that will develop due to secondary infection. It causes pneumonia, congenital. Also sometimes it develops chemical pneumonitis. Chemical, that is called chemical pneumonitis. So three things. One is air trapping, it leads to air leaking syndrome. Second thing, that is collapse of the alveoli, so atelectasis. Third is chemical pneumonitis. Fourth one, due to this decreased perfusion, also decreased oxygenation, and that is ventilation oxygenation of mismatch occurs. That is leads to decreased oxygenation in pulmonary vessels. That causes again pulmonary vascular constriction. Due to pulmonary vascular constriction, that is pulmonary hypertension. That will is persistent pulmonary hypertension. That is four things happen here. One is air trapping due to air leak syndrome. Second is atelectasis. Third thing is chemical pneumonitis. For this pulmonary hypnosis. These four things baby will present as respiratory distress. So these are the pathophysiology in meconium aspiration syndrome. So again, you have to classify meconium mass classification: mild mass, moderate mass meconium aspiration, and severe meconium aspiration. Mild meconium aspiration is when there is recovery of oxygen less than 40% or less than 48 hours. Moderate is when more than 40%, more than 48 hours. And severe when there is assisted ventilation, means continuous positive air pressure or mechanical ventilation for more than 40 hours. These are the classification of meconium aspiration syndrome. So how to know this meconium? So if you will get there is meconium stent of the umbilicus or this nail beds, means that baby passed meconium 4 to 6 hours before delivery. If these two signs are present, means baby passed meconium 4 to 6 hours before delivery. So what type of, same here also you will get floppy densities of floppy filters whole long with air bronchogram. Hyperinflation means increase like or say barrel separated chest or increase anteroposterior diameter, flat diaphragm. So all are features you will get in X-ray. Management. So if first when you will receive one baby with meconium stent abnormality, first you have to ask whether baby is TAR or preterm baby. Then meconium is sterile, meconium is clear or stent. If meconium stent baby is crying or abnormal. If baby is crying, tone is okay. Baby is torn baby, no not cyanotic, means that baby is a vigorous baby. In vigorous baby, nothing to do, only clear the airway and clean the baby and for routine care. Suppose a non-vigorous means the baby is apneic, lethargic, cyanotic. In that baby, you have to immediately what you will do? Intubate the baby. Intubate the baby means with endotracheal tube, you intubate the baby, enter to the trachea and throw suction. You have to no ball suction. You have to direct enter 12 suction catheter and attach to the suction apparatus. That is central suction machine, and with pressure 80 millimeter, you have to clear the all meconium in the airway. But contraindication here is positive pressure ventilation through ambubeg, because it will push the meconium again down. So here you have to intubate the baby and by suction you have to clear the meconium. If then after clearance of all meconium, you have to give oxygenation. If it's a mild cases, they will improve with oxygenations. If required with oxygenation, we will not improve. Require more pressure, you have to give you have to use CPAP, that continuous positive air pressure. Still after this also, if it is not really or not cured or not improved within 4 to 6 hours, we have to go for mechanical ventilations. These are the other options for treatment of meconium aspirations or management of meconium aspirations in ICU. Otherwise, here also due to this meconium also, the surfactants also inactivate. You can give also surfactant. So surfactant you can give also congenital pneumonia, meconium aspiration syndrome, respiratory distress syndrome. So these are the indications for surfactant therapy. So in meconium aspiration syndrome also you can give surfactant. So this is all about the causes and treatment of respiratory distress in children. So you will get mostly this short cases, and fiber in all is a long question in your exam. Hyaline membrane disease or meconium aspiration syndrome, and surfactant as a 2-mark questions. Okay, but this for today's class over. So next class I'll take another topic for you. Okay, thank you.